Hi, everyone. Welcome to Heal with Dawnna. Today, I have a very, very special guest on, Melinda Neal, my friend.
Right.
And just to get started with trigger warnings, today we're going to be talking about breast cancer and all that entails from diagnosis to treatment. Um, I should also start with that neither of us are medical professionals. I'm here to listen. She's here to share her experiences, but you should always consult your doctor and always follow your own path and what feels
Yes.
right for you and your family. I think
Yes.
even you would agree,
Yeah.
because what's right for you may not be right for someone else and vice versa.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Well, I'm so grateful to catch up with you.
I'm so
Um,
glad to be here.
before we started recording, we had a moment to catch up. It's been a hot minute.
It's been a long time, over a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I think I want to start with one of the most memorable moments I have with you. And it was I had turned 40 and I had to go for my first mammogram.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I think I was 41 and I kept putting it off. And
Yeah, that's
and
common.
I remember that I had a tearful moment and I'm like, it's not like I have my mom to go with me or whatever. And just out of the blue, you're like, do you want me to go with you? And I was like, I've never had somebody be that willing to support a person. And it meant the world to me.
It's important as a breast cancer survivor to encourage the mammograms and make sure people are going.
And I think the most helpful thing that you did is you talked me through it. Because I personally think the scariest part
Is
is
not
unknown.
knowing.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not something that, you go with your mom to do in your 20s or anything, it's pretty intimidating.
Exactly. Yeah. And all you ever hear is they squish them. Okay, but what does that mean? So there is a fear of the unknown, and you hear it's uncomfortable or it's painful. Um, for me, it's uncomfortable, but it's not painful. And it's a couple of seconds, and it's definitely worth it. Caught early, there's a good chance of survival now.
And I feel like the most beneficial thing you told me is that they were literally just going to grab them, do what they have to do. And I remember joking with you afterward that, well, usually, people buy me dinner first,
Yes.
you know?
I know, right? You
Um,
you have to make the jokes where you can to make it
yes.
lighthearted. Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to start with the mammogram that changed it all for you. Uh, what
I
what that was like.
I had found my lump. It wasn't a
Okay.
mammogram that it wasn't found in a mammogram. I had felt a lump and my doctor got me in for a mammogram, I believe the next day. And one thing I have learned through this journey, because I encountered it when I went to the doctor to get the prescription for the mammogram, they act different. I guess that was the biggest thing I noticed. I had already had a previous mammogram, so I knew what to expect, but everyone just acted different. No one would look me in the eye. It was very weird. And then they wouldn't let me leave. They did the mammogram, they did the ultrasound. The ultrasound is to show if there's liquid in it, if it's a fluid lump or it's solid. And they wouldn't let me leave. And I thought that was weird. So, but I was still completely oblivious at that time. Like it wasn't until afterwards I looked back and I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense why everyone was acting so weird." They all knew. Um so that's what that mammogram was like. I mean, it was the same as any other mammogram. but you just know. And they showed it to me. I asked if I could see it. And they showed it to me. And I still was in disbelief. You know, it didn't run in my family. Nobody in my family had ever gotten breast cancer. And I just kept saying, I'm not worried about it. And they wouldn't make eye contact with me. So it was definitely different.
Yeah. Is there anything that they could have done for the healthcare professionals that are out there listening and watching, to have made that appointment easier for you? Because you mentioned a couple of times that they didn't make eye contact. Was that hard that they weren't making eye contact with you, or?
No, no, it wasn't. I
Okay.
think I mean, for me, I think looking back, it probably kind of softened the blow when I got the diagnosis.
Okay.
Because I didn't actually get the diagnosis for a couple of days. They scheduled the biopsy the next day, and then I think it might have been 2 more days before I got when the doctor actually called with the diagnosis. And believe it or not, I'm not a superstitious person, but they called on Friday the 13th with my diagnosis.
Oh my gosh.
And
No.
even my doctor and I laughed about it. She's like, I'm like, today, you had to call me today, really? And she's like, well, I hemmed and hawed about it. I wanted to wait until Monday, but I kind of wanted to give you the weekend to let it sink in. And so, I mean, we laughed about it, as to whether or not Friday the 13th was the best day to get the news.
Now, what was that weekend like after getting the news?
It's funny. I was at work when I answered the phone call from my doctor, and it was about 11:30 in the morning. Um, my boss knew that I was getting the mammogram and the ultrasound and the biopsy. Yeah, that's kind of what made me mad. They did my biopsy the following morning, and my work didn't give me the rest of the day off. So I sat there with an ice pack under my armpit for the rest of the day. Um, so they told me I could have the rest of the day off, and I didn't want to go home. I was scared to go home. Um, I didn't want to be left alone with that thought, I guess. So I actually went down to the cafeteria at work and I stayed there as long as I could while my coworkers were coming and having lunch. I was sitting with them. So I think it was a couple hours before I went home, and I I don't I don't know. I had a really hard time. I don't want to say accepting it. Some people did say it. I looked like I was in denial. I don't remember when I told my kids. I told my mother that day. I don't remember when I told my kids though. It was undescribable, I guess, as to how you feel. I really can't put it into words any more than that.
Now, were your kids small? I know they're grown now, but at the time, were they young
They
or?
were they were 16 and 19. So my
Okay.
youngest was still in high school. My oldest had already graduated. And I do remember we went out to dinner and I told them in the car that I had something important to tell them. And my poor youngest son thought I was going to tell him that he was adopted because for his whole life I joked with him that he was adopted.
Oh my gosh.
It's just one of those things. Like he hates cheese and I love it. So I'm like, you're adopted. You're someone else's kid. But I did that. I don't know why, but I did that a lot, just joking around with him. So
Yeah.
he thought I was going to tell him that he was actually adopted. That's the news
Oh,
he thought he was going to get.
Now, talking about telling people, there was a show years ago, and the center wasn't, but it was like a housewife reality show. And one of the things, a woman that did got diagnosed with cancer, I don't remember which one, she shared how that she wound up comforting, like, so when she broke the news to people, she wound up, instead of them comforting her, she had to comfort them. Was
Them.
that your experience, or?
Yes, yes. I have always said it's harder on everyone else than it is the person going through it. It was definitely harder for my kids, my dad, my mom. It was definitely harder for them. And I found that I was doing the treatment more for them than for me. It is. I always said it's harder on your friends and family to watch you go through it.
So I want to get back to, I'll come back to you talking about the doing the treatment for them, because, but I first wanted to ask for those listening, and if we're ever in the situation where friend calls, a loved one calls, how would it, how could we be good supports where it doesn't turn into you needing to comfort us, but that we're showing up for you, we're supporting you, we're being strong for you?
I don't know. I wouldn't say there's anything different that anybody else could do. I had a lot of friends and family stopping over and just spending time with me. Um, and it's that was the I appreciated that the most. People just coming over and spending time with me. Um, but I think it makes them uncomfortable, which is completely understandable. They don't know what to do, what to say. Do we mention the cancer and how you're feeling? Don't you? Um, and that's just the reality of it. The fact that your friends and family are worried and concerned and scared. There's nothing you can change about that.
Okay.
It really is just the reality of it. Whether or not the person going through it wants to talk about it, that's probably up to each individual person.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the things, like when both my parents, trigger warning passed, is I was not someone that wanted to be greeted in the store going, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah." I wanted to be treated like it's any other day. Let's just push it to the back. Send me funny memes. Let's talk about
Ex-
housewives or whatever. Was that
exactly.
your kind
It,
of what you wanted?
yeah, I mean, I did, everyone wanted to wear masks. Now, keep in mind, I got my diagnosis March 13th on a Friday, and that was the last day they did anything because of COVID. So,
Oh, so there
so
was
we
that
have to throw
component
this
too.
into the mix. Yeah. So I was able to get my mammogram, my ultrasound, and the biopsy all done, but that was the last week they did everything. Monday, everything shut down. So I didn't even get my chemo until my first chemo treatment was the end of July, or no, the end of June. I'm sorry. So I went March, April, May, and June just a sitting duck. And everyone's like, what do we do? And I would have friends that would come over, and like normally we would complain about our problems and talk about our lives. And I think people didn't want to talk about themselves because all of a sudden, their kid acting up is nothing compared to my cancer. And it's like, this is temporary. Like, yes, this is what I'm going through, but it doesn't make what you're going through any less. There will come a day where my biggest problem is my cat knocked over a glass of water. It's just not today. Um, so I think people, they don't even know what to talk to you about. And I just wanted to keep it normal. Um, tell me that the fight that you got in with your husband last night is the biggest issue on your mind. It doesn't make your issues any less. And it's a very weird dynamic with everybody. Every single relationship I had with everybody changed. With my parents, with my kids, with my friends, with my coworkers. Um, it all changed. Some for the better, some not. The people that you think are going to be there the most aren't. And the ones that you would expect the least from are the ones that step up, I found. It's 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 a very weird place to be. Yeah.
Now, you did mention earlier that you did the treatment for your parents and your sons. Um, I had that correct. Their sons, two
Yes.
sons,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep. Two boys.
Um, could you tell me more about that? Like what you meant by that? Like, would you not have done that route of treatment had it not been for them, or is that kind of what kept you strong and continuing on doing it?
Definitely. It did definitely keep me going. I mean, that's what gives you your hope, your I don't know how to word it exactly, but I had a lot of time to, because during the 4 months that I wasn't getting any treatment or anything, the doctors were telling me, this is the chemo you're going to get, this is the radiation that you're going to do. Um, and I'm not a big Googler. I really didn't look into a lot of it, but I knew I was scared of the radiation. And I found a lady in Akron, I believe it was Akron. She doesn't do radiation, she uses sound waves.
Oh, okay.
And I was really interested in going that route. But A, my insurance didn't cover it. And B, I told myself if that doesn't work, and we know the radiation does, will I have screwed things up if I do the sound waves and then I still end up having to do the radiation and that much more time has gone by? And,
Right.
I just told myself I have to go with what we know works so my parents don't have to bury their daughter. I have to go through what I know works so my kids don't have to bury their mother. Like, this is, I guess, not a time to play around and try different things. And I think the fact that it was COVID and I had already waited so long made a
Right.
big part of that decision. Or I would have experimented with other things if it wasn't for how it would affect other people. I think I would have experimented with different things.
And that's what I'm a holistic practitioner with my Reiki and my somatic. Yeah,
Yeah.
insurance and so that's a whole other conversation for another time, but it
Yeah.
that insurance doesn't cover it. And it's something that kind of struck me as you were talking about is like this is not like a diagnosis trigger warning ADHD or a mental health diagnosis where you have time, like, so it's something that's the rest of your life
Uh,
where you can play around. Okay, well, that didn't work, so let's try this. This is a figure your lane and get her going.
and do it. Yeah. Yeah, you
And
don't have the time to experiment and play around and see what works and what doesn't. Yeah.
and I something memorable about what you said is that you're like, well, this works. I know that this is scientifically proven to work. And so you just pick that lane. And honestly, that's probably what I would have done too, because
Yeah.
it's like literally you have all these choices in front of you, but it again, pick a lane,
It's not an
you know.
easy choice. I mean, it's not. And there's there's a lack of confidence in knowing that you're making the right choice. It's just I didn't have the confidence that I was making the right choice. Because radiation is bad for it's really bad for you. And my cancer was in my left breast, so my heart took a hit. So, here I am,
Right.
5 years later wearing a heart monitor, which is not the case for everybody. I want to put that out there. The heart issues I'm having now, they're not linking to the radiation, but they did warn me, they had to tell me your heart is going to take a hit and it's scary. Especially when there's someone the next town over that can use radio waves and sound waves, and it might not be as, I can't think of the word. It might not work as well, but it's not going to damage you, but the cancer will. It's a lot.
And kind of also what I hope you can kind of talk about is how it's not just, okay, the world stops and I'm only focusing on my health. You had two children.
And the
Um,
world goes on.
you
Yeah.
have to be able to pay bills. You have to,
Yes.
eat yourself, eat your children, eat, have heat. I mean, during COVID, all the extra things that we had to kind of afford, like internet for schooling and,
Yeah.
you know,
Toilet paper. Like, I'm
oh my
not gonna
gosh,
be
yes,
able to
if you
buy
could find
toilet
it.
paper because the toilet paper shortage during COVID.
Fun fact, I have Australian friends. The same thing happened in Australia too with the
Really?
toilet paper. Yes. Um, so you did eventually choose, I don't want to say eventually, but when you were able to actually make that decision, you
Yeah,
were so did you do radiation and chemo? And can you
I
kind of
did.
just talk about that process?
Yeah, when they take the tumor out. The first thing is surgery and take the tumor out. And from there, they figure out, which this is something I didn't know, they figure out what type of cancer it is. And I did not realize that not all breast cancers are the same. I thought just cancer was
Oh,
cancer, and the only difference was where it was in your body. No, I there are so many types of different breast cancers you can have. And again, I'm no medical professional, but it almost seems like no one's cancer is the same. Um, so they at first they didn't even know if chemo was going to work on my tumor, the type of cancer that I had. Um, so they had to do more testing, and they came back and said, we're going to try 4 rounds of chemo, and it was two different kinds that they did together. So every 3 weeks I would go for that once they were able to open everything up and start doing necessary appointments again. um so I did 4 rounds of two different types of chemo combined, and then I want to say it was right after my last chemo. They wanted me to do 22 rounds of radiation, which is every day. So the chemo was every 3 weeks, and the radiation was every day for 4 weeks, a little over 4 weeks.
Wow. And now, to start with the chemo, and then we can move to the radiation. I feel I could speak kind of for everyone that you kind of know some of the physical parts with the chemo. The radiation, honestly, I have no clue. I've heard of radiation, but you don't really hear about that process so much. Can you talk about the physical, but then also the spiritual and mental aspects of going through both processes?
Yeah. Um, so the chemo, you go in, you have to get blood work done. The first thing you have to do is get blood work done. So you do the blood work and then they hook you up to they never put a port in me because I was only doing 4 rounds and I have good veins. They didn't surgically put in a port. So I would just get an IV when I went in, and they give you a steroid and then an anti-nausea med in your IV. So before you even start your chemo, you have to sit there with an IV for about 3 hours. Like, it was an all day process. Um, so you get a steroid, you get an anti-nausea med, and then I would get one type of chemo and then another. And the steroid made me not sleep. And I've heard this from other people that have had breast cancer. You're lucky if you sleep 15 minutes at a time throughout the whole thing. So not only are you sick, but you're wide awake for it. um, it would hit, you'd start feeling the side effects about 24 hours later. And they give you nausea meds to take at home in addition to what they put in your IV. And I don't know how to describe it other than you feel like you've been poisoned. Um, you just feel very weak, nauseous. You just feel like something's not right through your whole body. Like, you just feel it. I don't know how to describe it. A lot of bone pain. My fingernails and toenails would hurt. My hair follicles would hurt. And not everyone loses hair during chemo, which I didn't know. It depends on the type of chemo you're taking, which again, I didn't know there was different types of cancer and different types of chemo. So they told me your hair will fall out on the ninth day. And they were very, like, they know, they were specific. They said on the ninth day, you're going to wake up and you won't have hair. And sure enough, on the ninth day, which was July 4th, I'll never forget that either, all my hair was on my pillow. Like, I sat up, there was no hair, it was all on my pillow. It was the weirdest thing. Um, and I'd say the first week is the worst, and then you start feeling a little bit better the following 2 weeks, and then you go again and you just get hit with it all over again. And I'd say, and each time you go, it's worse. You feel worse. So I think by my fourth one, um, they were really concerned I had internal bleeding. I don't think I did, but they were checking me every hour. Um, I was in the hospital, had an IV. A lot of my toenails and fingernails had fallen off because when they put the IV in, it pools in your toes and fingers, the ends of your toes and fingers, which I didn't realize. For whatever reason, your knees and elbows turn a different color. Just weird
Oh,
things. And yeah, every time you go, it gets worse because it's building up in your body. Other weird things that I didn't know. You can't share a toilet with anyone. You're not supposed to, especially a child. Um, you're told to flush the toilet 3 times after you go.
now why is that? with the
because
toilet.
you're releasing the chemo, like you,
Okay.
and you have to wear a condom if you have sex. Things like that that I didn't know.
So when you mentioned that it felt like they were poisoning your body, they really were.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess it's no different. I mean, I remember at one time looking at a book about some probably Russian spies, and they had poisoned them, and so his hair had fallen out, and that's what I felt like. I felt like I've been poisoned, and yeah.
Now, to give us a time frame, because you mentioned 4 rounds, can you
Yes.
explain how long a round is?
They do it every 3 weeks,
Okay.
and it is pretty much an all-day event. I don't remember exactly, but I want to say I had to be there at like maybe 10 in the morning, and I didn't get done until usually around 4.
Okay. So would you go once every 3 weeks?
Yes.
And how many times would that equal a round? Or is a round just that one time?
Just that one time. Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
sorry if I wasn't explaining that good.
Oh,
So
no, no.
yeah, I had to go in 4 times. Some people at 6. It's all different depending on the type of cancer you have.
And kind of what's going through my mind is, I mean, you also are needing, and now it's during COVID, so maybe you're not necessarily working, but you're still a mom, you still have animals, you still have a home, you still have to pay bills, like
Yeah,
you're dealing
yeah.
with all this
And
and that on
I was on short-term disability,
top.
and
Okay.
I'm a very open person. I was getting $170 a week. So I was trying to live on less than $800 a month, and it's hard. I
Which just so I can reference it, so that's American dollars for us. And our area, my rent alone without any utilities is 800 and some dollars now, but back
Yes.
then, $800 a month with no utilities, not trash, with nothing included.
Cell phone, car insurance, yeah.
Right.
So one thing I have to say is that COVID probably saved me. Um, because they weren't collecting rent. The electric company wasn't collecting bills. Um, I knew I had to pay that all back once I started working. And there's organizations that you can apply to, um, but none of them were running during COVID. There's
Okay.
organizations that you can apply to specifically for cancer that help pay your rent, help pay, whatever it is that you need while you're on disability.
And
There,
speaking of that, I did
yeah,
not mean to interrupt you, but speaking of that, I had mentioned before, but I didn't say it during our recording. I'm going to put a list of resources
yes,
down below to help people have easier access to those. And Melinda's going to help me which ones, she really helped
uh,
her, and not just this, but getting diagnosed and emotional
yeah,
support, everything. So I'll make sure I put those down there.
yeah. So there are great resources out there. I just didn't have access to them because of COVID.
Right.
Um, I was friends with a girl, and they ran I don't want to say she ran, but she was a big part of it. It's called the Pink Fund out of Genesee County. And I don't know if anyone around here is local, but they do the bikini rally every February.
Okay. And just to give everyone a reference, we're in Batavia, New York, which is
Yes,
between Buffalo and Rochester. It's about an
Rochester.
hour from the falls, Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
So
So
that's Genesee County, New York.
it is, sorry. But
Oh, no,
so
no, that's fine.
There was a local organization that was able to help me. Um, so I do definitely want to include them. Honestly, I don't know if they are still active though. But the Pink Fund out of Genesee County, New York, they do a bikini rally every February, I want to say, where they all ride snowmobiles and bikinis to raise money, and they have a calendar and stuff. They were able to help me some. So I do appreciate them wholeheartedly.
And now I do eventually want to get to radiation, but uh, one of the things that I keep feeling as you're telling all this, there had to have been a sense of helplessness, like where you're now dependent as a grown person, dependent upon all of these, agencies and people, assisting you with not just financial stuff, but I mean, again, you had a 16-year-old who had to be fed and, like
Yeah,
what.
have a lot of friends that would bring me groceries. You don't eat a lot. And it's weird because I would get a little window where I was hungry, and you have to eat during that window or you might not eat again for 17 hours. Dry cereal, because you get mouth sores. So the inside of your mouth feels like it's on fire.
Okay.
You have to drink a lot of water to help flush it out. And so it was really just a lot of water and dry cereal. I ate a lot of cookies. My best friend makes the best cookies. She was selling them to raise money for me. And, she would just like take them into work and, have, 50 cents or whatever a cookie, the money. And a lot of people did that actually. I had a few friends that raised money for me that way. But you don't really eat a lot. Um but everything I did need, my friends really stepped up and rallied for me and got me through it.
So I kind of was looking at it like almost in more negative sense that you're dependent. But from what I'm hearing from you is that it actually is a more the opposite, where it's like, oh my gosh, people show up for me.
I am a very independent person, very independent. I have always lived alone. Um, and it's hard for me to ask for help. It's hard for me to be in a situation where I need the help. I was so sick, I didn't care though. I mean, I hate to scare people, but I was so sick. I it didn't even bother asking for help. So it wasn't as hard for me as I think it would have been under different circumstances.
So it was almost like the universe or God, whatever, everyone's belief
Exactly.
system, was forcing you to surrender.
Yes. Yeah, it was it was an eye opener. It really is. And like I said, the in my situation, and I've heard this in other situations, the people that you think are going to be there for you, I don't know if it scares them, but they kind of have whatever and they have their reasons for stepping back. And that never bothered me. Everybody deals with things in their own way. And then the people that you never thought in a million years that would step up, they do. Maybe because they don't have the emotional connection or so much the personal connection, but it went the complete opposite that I thought it would.
So you said that you didn't let it bother you, but were there friends that just dropped off then? Like, did you lose
Yes.
people during
Yes,
this journey?
I did. Yeah. People that I never thought I would lose. Um But at the same time, I tell myself, well, maybe this happened because those people weren't supposed to be in your life anymore. I mean, it's a
Right.
little dramatic, but you know, and
Yeah.
I just accept it like that. People that are supposed to be in your life will, and I guess those are people that they didn't have a seat at my table anymore, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's Maya Angelou that says, I believe, that says when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
Um, so I do want to now talk about radiation because, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I personally know nothing about radiation.
Yeah. So what they do is you go in, and I don't remember how many times, but they map out exactly where the tumor was because it was removed at this point, but they map out like in your chest exactly where the tumor was. And I don't know if it's different for everybody, but I laid on my stomach, flat on my stomach, and there was these handlebars like straight up ahead that I hung on to. And they tattoo your body as
Oh,
to exactly where they need you to line up. Because, and I don't know honestly, because I think I tried to block a lot of it out. So I could be very wrong, but think of the radiation machine like an x-ray machine. So if there's a specific part that they need to x-ray, they line it up, but it had to be in the exact same spot every single time. So they actually tattooed my back so it would be lined up. And it's nothing major. It's like little dots that they put in. I might have 5 of them where, they make the X there. It takes, I don't even remember how long my radiation was, so don't quote me, but 8 minutes? It takes you longer to get undressed and dressed than the actual radiation takes. So yeah, you just go in, you lay on a hospital bed, they have you get undressed, put a gown on. Um, they have you lay on the table and you're on a sheet. And so you lay on it and then they kind of get around you and they move the sheet, like they pull on the sheet to put you where they need you on the table. And the x-ray, I keep calling it an x-ray machine. That's all it feels like is an x-ray. Like there's no actual pain getting the radiation. It's like getting an x-ray, except it takes like maybe 8 minutes. And then you do that. I had to do it every day, Monday through Friday, 22 times. And the amount of days that you go is different for everybody. But the radiation was harder for me than the chemo was. I it it makes you so tired. And that it got after maybe the first week and a half, it got to where that was all I did was the radiation. It wipes you out. And it gave me a horrible cough. Like like a cough I've never had. And I remember that really made my mom nervous when I would talk to her on the phone because my mother lives out of state. I didn't see her at all during this. So we would only.
keeping in mind that this was COVID that you were going.
Yes, yeah.
So
So she was terrified. That poor woman thought for sure I was a goner. And I'm like, Mom, it's not COVID. It's a radiation cough. And it's not like any cough I've ever heard before, but it goes away. Some people do get actual burned from the radiation. I've seen some pretty bad burns. I didn't burn at all. The only thing is all my pores burned. All my pores turned black. But I've seen people's flesh, trigger warning, I've seen people's flesh come off. Like it can be bad.
wow.
Yeah.
Now, was there anything, because like with the chemo, you couldn't use the same toilet seat as someone else. Were there any things like that that you had to?
No, no, they said, hmm, I I don't remember. I don't recall being told to avoid babies or small children during that time. Um, I don't remember, but I didn't know any small children or babies at the time.
Well, that was
So
kind of my thought. I mean, at least you had teenagers where, I mean, could you imagine women that go through this when they have a 9 month old?
no.
Um, Now, were there any physical, like, with the chemo you talked about, that you lost your appetite and that, there's the vomiting and hair loss. Was there anything other than just the tiredness and the cough? Like,
During the radiation, no. Again, lucky enough, I didn't burn. So I don't know how they treat that because the radiation goes on. If you burn a week in, I don't think they stop it. Um, so for me, no, it was just the unbelievable fatigue and the cough. I don't know exactly what other people's experiences are other than I know it can cause burns.
okay, but I'm imagining even if you do have an appetite, if you're sleeping so much,
You won't eat
right?
anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine that degree of radiation. I don't think anybody would have an appetite during that, but I don't. So yeah, it's a long, like it's a easy 6 month process of active treatment that you're going through.
Was there, I'm sorry, like I just it like I wasn't prepared for that with the radiation, honestly, because they always focus on the chemo, so I feel like we're desensitized almost
Yeah,
to
for
that
me, the
because it's always in
radiation,
movies and
yeah.
but the radiation, I mean, and I cringed when, hold on, my light turned off. I cringed when you were talking about not only it burning, but if you're doing it for 22 days straight, it's not it burns so then you take a couple weeks off, you heal. It's a it burns and now we're gonna burn some
Burn it
more.
again. Yeah.
Was there anything with all this the especially the focus on like your mental health, your mental stability, your, was there anything that helped you? I mean, I know people turn to music and God, and was there anything that you used that you would recommend to people?
Um, for me personally, I never thought I was going to die from it.
Okay.
I never felt that way. And I did have, I don't know if it was a doctor or a nurse, but they asked me if I was afraid that this was going to kill me. And I said, no, not at all. And she said, well, that's good because people know. Again, not my words. It came from a nurse or a doctor, but I do believe, I personally do believe that. And I never once thought that this was going to kill me. So, and I took it as a learning experience. And I kind of was just in awe of how much everything around me changed. Like I said, every relationship with everyone changed. Like my older son and I got so close during this, and it has stayed that way. I guess I took it as a learning experience. So it I did not finding it, I did not find it at all depressing or negative. I guess I didn't have any negative thoughts about it, but I also knew if I was going to get through it, I I couldn't let it be a negative in my life. And I did spend a lot of time asking God what he was trying to show me, what the purpose of all of this was. And, like we mentioned before, I think part of it is there's people sitting at your table that shouldn't be there. And new people were added. And it's one thing I realized is I never once got another migraine headache. My friends and I
Oh,
joke, well, was it a good trade-off? Was it worth it? But I've never had another migraine since. So there were pros to it. If you can look at it with an open mind, there were definitely pros to it, along with all the cons.
something that you said that really struck me because I believe in the power of manifestation, and the energy you put out comes back to you. And I wondered when you said that, the doctor or the nurse said people know, how much of it is that you're able to sense what's going to happen versus you never believed it for a second. So in your heart, you knew that you were going to make it through, and that's what made you make it through.
Exactly. I definitely do think your mindset controls a lot of your, I don't want to say diagnosis, but your, um, I can't even think of what it's called, but your, how you're going to make out, how it's going
Right.
to go. Um, and I think the doctors in that field see it as well. I really do think the mindset that you have going into it has a lot to do with the outcome. And I think any doctor working in that field would agree they see that too.
Right.
Yes.
Now, was there anything that you found that other people were doing for you that was particularly helpful? Is there anything that you would recommend? Like if we had a family member or a friend going through it, how do we show up for them through the chemo and the radiation? Like what would be the best thing to do to help?
Um, I'd have to say just be there for them in the way that works for them. I can say the hardest times for me when I really wish I had someone and I didn't, because keep in mind, I lived alone through this. I was single. I don't have, a live-in boyfriend or husband. My 19-year-old was already out on his own. My 16-year-old was living at his father's. So the hardest times for me were in the middle of the night. It's when I felt the loneliest. It's when I felt the sickest. And anyone that's even had so much as a common cold, for whatever reason, you feel the sickest when you're going to bed and when you wake up. Like it seems to,
Absolutely.
not be so bad during the day. Um, it would have been nice to have someone during those hours. Unrealistic, I understand. But if you have the chance to be the person they can call at 3 in the morning, they need someone at that time too, not just 8 to 5. Um, I'm gonna start crying because that really was the hardest part, I think.
So my question then is because we talked about like 3 in the morning, most people are sleeping, and
Yeah.
would it have even been helpful if a friend said, my ringer's always off, you text away at 3 a.m. I might not respond until the morning because I might not get it, but you have a place where you can send whatever thoughts,
E- e- ex-
messages.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, but at the same time, you have a friend that's waking up to a whole slew of paragraphs, or even if it's just a text, and they know they weren't there for you. Like you needed them at 3 a.m. So you almost feel guilty doing it because you don't want that friend or your mother or whoever. You you don't want them to wake up at 3 o'clock thinking they needed me and I wasn't there. So you almost feel guilty doing that. I did anyway.
Okay.
Because it's never just about you. And maybe that's just a me thing. But it affects everybody. It's not just a you thing when you have cancer.
As you're saying that, I'm getting, well, no, I'm getting frustrated because it's almost like in those moments, there's no right answer. There's nothing that can actually, because, even saying you can text me, you're saying on your end, you feel guilty. Like, so there's a whole lot of, I'm just even hearing the experience, feeling helpless in moments of,
Eh,
being the friend saying you can text me, but then knowing on the other end, you're feeling
that's
guilty
what
that
you're
I'm waking
waking
up to
up
all.
to.
So it's trigger warning, but as my dad would say, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. It's hard. There is
So is kind of
nothing easy
the
about
the
it.
the trick kind of is that even though you might feel guilty, but to still make the gesture so that that you're not alone. Is that kind of the trick of the game?
Yeah. And I would definitely do that. Like, I would definitely tell you, another friend of mine, like, hey, if you need to vent at 3 a.m., go ahead. I'm not going to respond to you. I'll be sleeping. And you like offering that, but at the same time, it's just knowing that that's what the person is going to wake up to. It's hard. It's hard. Like, and it's not the stuff that people think of that's hard. It's like you hear someone going through cancer and it's like, oh yeah, the treatment sucks. It's everything else that's hard. the
The
the treatment is
loneliness.
the easiest part, to be honest with you.
Well, my thought is and I'm someone that I live alone. Like, so I get it. And and I understand. I mean, like if I have the stomach flu, that's when I really notice that I'm alone. Because
Yes.
right now, I mean, I'm talking to you, I can go outside and like just the loneliness. And I would assume as horrible as the chemo and the radiation is, but you're surrounded by doctors, you're surrounded by other patients. There's,
But,
people to visit with.
yeah. And there was no, and another thing that I struggled with too, going through the treatments with COVID, is I'd probably have to say 9 times out of 10, when people do chemo, they bring someone with them, their mom, their sister, a friend, someone to sit with them, because it's an all day event. And that ended during COVID. So nobody had anyone with them. So it's like I'd be telling people, all right, well, you got to drive me to Rochester and you got to drop me off. And then 5 hours later, you got to come back and pick me up. And we're 45 minutes from Rochester.
Right.
So it's like that puts a strain on it. And I wonder if I would have ever had anyone go with me anyway. I didn't want anyone to see me like that. Um, I don't know if I would have let anyone go with me. And I think that plays a big part in it too, is if how different is it if you have someone with you? And that's all I knew was going by myself. And so yeah,
Well, as you're saying that, it kind of goes back to the text thing, because had
Yeah,
you had someone sit there, would you be thinking, oh my gosh, they have, you know, errands to run, they have work to be at, and they're sitting here for 5 hours. And I wouldn't, as the friend, think this, but I know on the other side, being in your position, I'd be like, they're wasting their 5 hours that they could be doing other things.
exactly. Yeah, because other people, they have jobs. I can't expect other people to call in just to take me to a doctor's appointment. And I think the last chemo that I did, so the sickest I was, I drove myself. I don't know how I did it, but I drove myself there and I drove myself home. I don't know how, because the medicine that they give you is so sedating. You're not supposed to drive.
So everyone at home, we do not recommend this. You
Yeah,
bother a
don't do
friend,
as I did.
your friends would rather you waste their 5 hours so that everyone's safe.
Yes, get
I get it.
transportation.
I
Don't
get
do as
it.
I did.
Especially as someone who does live alone and is single, you get very independent. And
Yeah,
and it's not even just that you don't want to bother people, but it's kind of
you
like
don't know
you don't
how
want to
else to
you don't want
live.
to be bothered, having to like wait till they pick you up, and if they're running late, or you just want to get in the car, go do what has to be
Yes,
done, and get home.
yes, exactly.
So I kind of want to close up is with, now that you're on the other side, things that you would have done differently, things you would have changed. What's life like on the other side?
Life does get better. I can say so, the doctor did, because when you get a cancer diagnosis, they try to send you through cancer counseling. That wasn't available to me because of COVID, but they do try and prep you for afterwards. Um,
Are we talking mental health, physical health,
physical.
financial health?
Yeah,
Okay.
physical. So it ages you a good 15 to 20 years, and you feel that. Like a lot of that never goes back to normal. So I am 46 and I easily feel like I'm 60. Um, and when you stop treatment, like as soon as you stop treatment, those doctors are done with you. You just follow up with your primary care from that point on. And I remember feeling I thrown away, I guess, would be the best way to explain it. It's like you guys literally kept me alive the last 6 months. My life depended on you, and now you're just done with me. That rocked my world. I can say that. That I didn't know what to do. Um, but you figure it out, you adjust. Um, and I'd probably say that's kind of the aftermath of it. Again, mentally, I handled it very well. I'm also the type of person that everything happens for a reason. And even if
Right.
what you're going through now sucks, it will get better. Mentally, the hardest thing is people still expect me to act like I'm 46 and do the things a 46-year-old could. And I'm over here acting and feeling like I'm 60. That's probably the hardest part. I have people that are older than me and they're like, well, why can't you do it? You're younger than I am. Well, because I aged 20 years, okay?
I don't like, I don't like that sentiment. I also don't like, the kids these days. It's like, well, when we were kids, it might have
Yeah,
been different, the dumb stuff we were doing, but
yeah,
we all went through that. As I always joke is, generations after my parents' generation, they complain about Madonna, and then it was like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. And I'm like, you know what? you were watching Elvis shake his pelvis and
Exactly.
your
Yes.
parents were like, heck no. Like, so that sentiment, because you don't know everyone's struggle. And I mean, not to sound like a bumper sticker, but not all disabilities, not all struggles are, no one walks around, or
E-
most people don't walk around with a t-shirt that says, here's what I've been through,
exactly.
give me some grace. And
Yeah.
so I guess it goes to that, give everyone compassion,
Exactly.
because
You
you don't
never know
know.
what someone is going through. Yeah.
And even, because my a little bit of my story where all that trauma and stuff. And it's also my therapist and I were just talking about this, where people who have had like one traumatic, I'm just going to trigger warn it, and say what I was going to say. There was a post where the person was talking about, fat people and trigger warning, like trigger warning up the gazoo. And I'm like, you know what, though? You're not, when you're shaming people, first of all, shame doesn't work. You're
Yeah.
also not taking into account different people's struggles and trauma. And someone replied, well, I have friends that have trauma and they're not fat. And I'm like, well, first of all,
That's
everyone's
true.
trauma is different. And even what my therapist and I were talking about is, if you had a happy upbringing, the best of the best upbringing and everything, and you have one traumatic event, it's traumatic, but you have a foundation of support,
Exactly.
love, and everything. When you're having trauma from birth, it's a
Yes.
very different experience. And I
It
did not
is.
reply because I wasn't going to go there with this person, but I was also thinking, like, yeah, but they might be skinny, but what are they smoking cigarettes?
It,
Trigger warning. Are they doing drugs? Are they using alcohol to cope? Do they
it,
scream and holler at their family? Like, you don't know.
you don't know. Exactly.
And just
Yeah.
the physical, and like you said, like, your friends wanting you to behave like a 46-year-old,
Yeah.
or just strangers that you don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's not your
Yeah.
job to have to tell them.
No, yeah, I don't have to live up to their expectations.
Oh, I like that. I might quote that. I like that. We're not
Definitely.
responsible for living up to other people's expectations.
Yeah. And that's just kind of the way, and it's hard. Um, it's hard, but it's taken me a long time. I mean, that didn't just come naturally or happen overnight, but I finally learned that I had to. Like, it happens a lot with my dad. My dad is, I think he just turned 67, and it's like I'm 46, so I'm younger than him, and you know, he thinks I can do more than him. And like, now that he's retired and I'm out of work right now, um, so he thinks I can just help him with all this stuff. And it's like, I can't. Like, my body is older than yours. And it it's taken a long time to put my foot down and not try to live up to everybody else's expectations.
And as you were saying that, now my parents could be your parents' age, or be your parents'
Yeah.
parents. Well, at least my dad, because my dad would be 92 if he was alive today.
Yeah.
Um, but that kind of that philosophy of pick yourself up by your bootstraps, snap out of it,
Yes.
you know, that especially when I was going through mental health stuff. First of all, mental health stuff didn't exist. And it was like, just snap out of it.
Snap
Like,
out
what's
of
your
it.
problem?
Yeah.
Or
And
like
it's
this, like, you're 46, so you should be able to
run circles
just suck it
around
up,
it.
buttercup. And
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard for me to accept that about myself because I've always been independent and I've always um so that's been hard for me too. And every once in a while I have to sit back and be like, give yourself some grace. You've aged. And as much as I don't want to accept it sometimes, I have to.
is there anything that you would have changed about the choices you made when you were going through it?
Now looking back, I think I did the right thing. I do.
And
And I
especially, oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, as much as everything um was screwed up with COVID, um nothing would have changed with my treatment other than it would have happened sooner. So I don't think there's anything that could have been done differently given that it was during COVID. And I probably would have tried the lady with the sound waves. I probably would have looked into that a little bit more just to at least see how much it would have cost. But given that my insurance didn't cover it and we were already 4 months out from, not having treatment, I don't think I would have changed much.
I was just going to say to anyone experiencing this, and the theme of giving yourself grace, again, as we mentioned earlier, this isn't a where you had the time, energy, and resources to really research it and try one avenue and change it. It's a pick a lane, get it moving. So you have to
Yeah,
lean into grace because what other choice did you have, you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
is there any final advice that you would give to someone going through this?
Just to, as hard as it is, just stay positive. Try and as much as you can spend that time, what is it trying to teach you? I was just real quick, I was a doormat before I had cancer. Anyone and everyone could walk all over me. And I told myself I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to change my life. And keep that in mind when you're going through cancer. Maybe it's a new beginning. Try It's not all bad. It's not all bad. At least for me. Good things have happened because of it.
Yeah. And I think we all as humans, when you're going through it, you're not necessarily seeing that. And it's not until that 2020 vision hits that
Yeah.
you can, look back and go, oh my gosh, that person, greatest thing that ever happened with that, was them
Yeah.
leaving my life
Yeah.
or whatever you
I,
know,
yeah. Try not to think of all the changes that are happening as a negative.
okay.
Things are going to change, and just try to look for the positive in it. That's
I
all
love
I
it.
can say.
And as you said a million times, give yourself grace because
Yes.
you have no other choice.
Allow help.
Um,
You're going to need it, whether you want to or not. Allow people to help you and be there for you.
And that's where you suck it up, buttercup, is
Yes.
accepting help. You just surrender.
It,
Everything else, give yourself 1000% grace.
yes. Yes.
Mhm. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. I hope I
No,
answered your questions and
you did.
enlightened anybody that will watch this.
And I'm in contact with Melinda. So if you comment below something a question you might have for her or whatever, I can always relay the message.
Yes, I will answer
Um,
any questions. Yeah. Or
yeah.
if anyone needs a buddy, I am more than happy to be someone's cancer buddy, or like we were going to be mammogram buddies. I'm happy to be of any support I can to anyone going through this.
And in light of this, I think I told you in 2 weeks I have mine.
Yes, if
So,
you want me to go with you,
all right, I
I'm
might take
there.
you up on that.
So
I'm going
for
to stop
sure.
recording, but thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you're interested in being a guest of the channel, please reach out to healwithdawnna@gmail.com. And remember, you are lovable just as you are.